All right, so the first part of all this work is you do want to, as we are doing down there, the ladies are, protect yourself. You are dealing with oil-based products for the most part here, and you want to keep them away from your skin. So wearing gloves and dust masks if you're sanding, respirators if you're applying, is all the intelligent, right thing to do. You need a piece of wood?
Yes.
There you go.
You would tell me what this looks sandy. Is this the sandy side? Just feel it.
Yeah. All right. The first step is to take, and we'll just pass this tack cloth away. You want to get rid of all of your sand dust that you've done in prepping your wood. Stain is a pasty type consistency out of the can. It's almost like a compound. You'll have a little bit of solvency that will settle on the top, and you'll end up with a scooping out a globby mess of unbrushable gook. Is actually the way the stuff's supposed to look. That's step number one. You actually reduce the volume of your filler stain with the 120 brushing thinner. I added about 30% thinner to the bottom of this little cup before I put the pastewood filler stain in, and I'm going to get it to a brushable peanut butter or a thick liquid consistency. It would easily be handled with a rag, which is exactly what we're going to use to apply it. These things can be brushed on. The secret is to put them on heavy. They're a penetrating product. What they do is they fill the grain of the wood as well as stain and help uniform the color. All I want you to do is dip a touch of this into your pastewood filler. When you bring it to your board with a little pressure on top, you work it into the grain in circular motions. The circular motions go down the grain of the wood until you get a good thick application of the product on there. Then you're going to let it sit for a little bit, and after it's sit for about 3 to 5 minutes, we're just going to take that and rub it across the grain. What we'll do is we'll work it into our products, pass it around, and while we're passing it around, the board will be sitting. You'll get it back a second time. You run it across, and what you want to do is remove as much of the surface residue as you can, and you're actually working it into the grain of the wood. Now this stain again is intended to colorize or prep the wood for uniformity in color. It's really not it has the word pastewood filler stain. It's not designed to fill imperfections or repair the wood. It is also important to state that prior to even this stage of things, you want to make sure that your substrate has been well prepped in terms of sanding and smooth and fairness. Because when you go to a high gloss clear coating, if you get the least little imperfection in there, even a line from a planer mark, or even a coarse sanding mark, it will definitely show through. So it is important that you prep and smooth your substrate before you get into the staining process. So there we are. What you do is take a dry rag to this, and with the grain, you run it vigorously back and forth and try to wipe up as much of that stain that you've put that's on the top. And you should almost bring that flat stain to almost a, it's not going to be shiny, but it's going to have a sheen to it. It's not going to be flat, flat, flat like it was. And as the rag gets loaded up with filler, flip it over and get to another dry side. So again, the technique here is getting the surface residue off the top of the stain. That you all do the very first day that you do it. Now we've got our board stained. At this point, if we didn't feel comfortable with the color it is, if there was still some variability in light and dark pieces of the mahogany, we may opt to go to a second application. We wouldn't do that immediately after. We'd let it set up for a few hours, and we come back on the same day and put another application of the stain. But let's assume we're happy with our finish now. This is what we're looking for. We're going to let this sit overnight. We never, ever, ever varnish the same day that we stain with these pastewood fillers. They're linseed based and they don't dry quickly. They take at least 24 hours dry time. So even overnight isn't quite long enough. Is take your rag, dip it in the thinner without spilling it here so that you get it quite wet.
28. Okay.
So you dip in here, you get it wet with product, not dripping, but just moist with solvent, and you do the same thing with the grain. Basically, with this type of clear coating, at this stage and from on, including when you're applying your varnish, you always want to do it in the direction that the grain goes, not across the grain.